Hello, and welcome to Tribe of Humankind. Today is Saturday, August the 5th. Yeah, and this is our 13th episode. And we gather together to talk about the spiritual evolution of our human species, to talk about not only our own personal spiritual growth and how we take care of that, but also our understanding of the greater collective and how that affects us and how we affect that, and what our vision is for where we see humanity moving in the next 5 to 10 to 15 years. I call this group Tribe of Humankind to speak of us as one group and to plant that idea deeper into our psyche, to get rid of the separations of politics and geography, and to give us our one family that we are, and to think about us for that way, for at least during this conversation. And tonight we have a couple of new faces and voices to join in the conversation. Really excited to have their presence here. We have our good friends Lex and Mano, who've been with us since the start in every episode. And we also have my good friend Sun from Oahu, and Daniela, a new and good friend of mine that I met in BC. And we'll go ahead and pass the mic around to each person to say a little hello. Let us know where you're from. Tell us a little bit about what some of your interests are, what your focus is, and a little bit of like what you do to tend to your own spiritual path, like what inspires you and what helps you kind of stay on your own growing edge. And whoever's feeling ready to speak to that first can go ahead and say hello this evening.
Thank you for that introduction, Shane. It's always nice to hear beautiful introduction. And yeah, I'll jump right in. My name is Mano. I am calling in from Mississauga, just outside of Toronto. And yeah, I'm feeling good in my body. I had a really good flag football game this morning, so my body does feel sore. But I took a cold shower right before coming here, so I feel more calm, grounded. And as far as my spirituality go, with what keeps me, like, I keep evolving. It's imagination, just dropping into that imagination, and just feeling into the life as human, and the beauty and the love that I can create in the world, and how much more expansive it can be than it is currently is in my current reality. And that's definitely is a beautiful practice. And just remember to breathe. And sometimes I forget, like, in the intensity and the heat of the moments, I forget, and I get caught up in my own stories. And just remembering to breathe. And Daniela started a group on Inside Timer, and it's called the 100-day meditation challenge. So now I'm like forced to meditate at least once a day, and that's been great. That's been really helping to just to meditate no matter what. It's to the next 100 days, and I feel like it'll be really great. And I use that to even like do yoga nidras. Like, if I feel tired during the day, okay, let me just refocus, come back, connect with my body, see how I feel. And usually I would, fall back into habits of like a scrolling or like doing things that's not necessarily helping. And it's about, I'm in the process of resetting and really, utilizing my full potential. So those are some of the tools that I use. So I'll pass the mic to the next person who's ready.
Let's ask you one question before we do. Thanks for mentioning the flag football, and just how that how good that made you feel or whatever. I feel like that's so important to I don't know, not separate spiritual from the physical, like the highs we get off the like play or the running or the but how that's, yeah, I don't know if you wanted to speak to how I guess how a spiritual practice includes what we're doing with our bodies or how we're taking care of them, and like what's keeping us inspired or spirited or like alive and grounded. And
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah, no, I did notice that, like, just moving my body and just like getting the blood flow going, um, that definitely helps to like calm my mind. And for the past few years, I've been like a very stationary, I've been practicing like Vipassana, so like, sit for hours. And even scientifically proven that, meditation is good for you, but I think it has to be a balance between like having physical activity and also like incorporating spiritual activities. So again, like me coming back to Toronto, really being part of the system that's here, the matrix that's here, really incorporating like things that I can do that is available to me, that's access to me, where I can also meet like a cool people. They may not be like spiritual people, but like a cool people I can meet, hang out with, so I can feel that sense of like a community sense of connection in a different way. At the same time, also get like a physical activity. Like, you tell me to go to the gym like 5 days a week, do it for a week, and then I'd be like, oh my God, this is so boring. I'm just go like, pumping iron and listening to music. And it's like, whereas like if I'm playing in a team, it's so much exciting. And today, the first time in the last like 4 weeks, I did a goal. I took the ball to the end line. And I was just like, oh my God, this feels so great. Like, I was pumping. And after 2 hours of running around, I come home. Okay, I'm dead. Like, I just had some food and I passed out for an hour. And then I woke up and I was like, oh shit, it's 12:30. I got to get ready for the call. Jump in the shower, but it's good. It's good. Yeah. So really incorporating that physical, I think it's super important. I was also telling Daniela this yesterday on the book that I was reading, and it's called The Ripple Effect. And it's particularly talking about the chapter on physical exercise, how it's good and how it can help with anxiety, depression, and even like suicidal thoughts and stuff. It can just like vanish all of that, just having that physical activity, particularly incorporated with meditation. It's like they're talking as like it's the cure. And they go obviously more in depth to the science behind it, but the essence of it is that the importance of physical activity.
Get real highs off of it, for sure.
Oh yeah. And we're like cheering each other up. Like, somebody goes, like if somebody runs fast, go to the end, like we all high-fiving, like, yeah, we did it, It's so it's a great feeling.
I just saw this, heard this clip from this doctor. She said, they just discovered this hormone that is secreted from the muscles, and they're calling it. The old belief was that they believed only glands secrete hormones, but they just found out that the muscles themselves secrete this hormone, and scientists are calling it the hope hormone because it's antidepressant, anti-anxiety, and all this stuff. It makes you feel good and all that stuff. And the only way you can get it is when you move the body, when you exercise. And she said it's incredible. It's right in the belly of the muscles themselves that they secrete this hormone. And we're absolutely designed to move and our locomotion, because I study qigong and movement arts, flow arts. Our bodies, the way it's designed, it's absolute the sacred geometry within it, our locomotion. Like what I tell my qigong class is like how fishes swim. It creates this. Oh, I gotta slow down. It creates this sine wave, when fishes swim, either like this or some fishes swim like this. I think sharks swim like this and dolphins swim like this. Birds, when birds fly, like they flap their wings and it creates this toroidal field. And when humans, when we walk, our lower bodies, it creates this constant counter rotation, creating a 0 point. But yeah, sorry, I had to jump in there. I just, science, movement, exercise is kind of like really my thing. I've been studying that for a really long time.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. No, I love hearing this. I love the geometrical patterns, like, all of it. So yeah, so grateful that you share that.
Can you give us a little intro, son, to just for our audience, let them know who you are, where you're from, kind of thing?
Oh yeah. Aloha guys. My name is Sun. I'm calling in from Honolulu, Hawaii. I'm Chinese, born in Vietnam, immigrated to Hawaii when I was 4. And so I grew up here. Growing up, it was always interesting because trying to figure out who I am, being displaced at such an early age, and um after school I studied massage therapy, studied energetic healing, and then which led me to finding my Taoist teacher, where we studied Qigong, internal Kung Fu, Taoism, and that was my first major passion in life is the Taoist arts, internal Kung Fu. Um, I realized there were warrior shamanic training,
Mhm.
and yeah, so that's my passion where I come from. I teach regular Qigong classes here twice a week at the park. And and recently I just launched a new website, emfhawaii.com, where I do EMF assessments and mitigation strategies. Mm. So that's what's been alive and active for me.
So, and you and I met in Kauai. What year did we meet? Maybe 2014 or 13, something like that.
Yeah, maybe 14, 15.
Mm.
I always tell people about our last hike into Kalalau Valley. If I don't know if you guys are aware of Kalalau Valley, it's the Napali coast. Napali, which means the cliff, and it's a world famous hike on Kauai. It's an 11-mile hike and up and down, in and out of the ridge line, coastal line, and just beautiful Hawaiian forests and the vast expanse of the Pacific Ocean. And people come from all over the world to do this hike and camp out in the valley. And me and Shane, the last time we did it, we started at 8 p.m. on a full moon, and we hiked out with the full moon going out, with our packs, and caught 2 night rainbows on the way in.
Oh my God, it was such an awesome trip. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
we hiked all night and we were like exhausted. Just before sunrise, we like stop and go ahead and sleep for a couple hours. And there's this little waterfall right where we stopped, and we like shower off because they were like hot and sweaty from hiking through the night, and like crash out. And then for a couple hours, it was so amazing. And then woke up in the last couple hours into the valley in the morning. But yeah, so many good memories. Son and I have done a lot of fun stuff together.
That it just reminds me of that feeling hiking on a trail, and just this vast expanse of the Pacific Ocean, just so calm, so peaceful, nobody else out there, and it was like, whoa, ocean and sky was all there was. Amazing.
Yeah, we saw
Yeah.
night rainbows. I didn't know they existed. Whole
I know
new night rainbows. That
people
blows
think
my
the night
mind.
rainbows are around the moon, but it's not. It's when the full moon is low and there's a lot of humidity and moisture, and that light shines, and then there's a rainbow that's casted, and it's the Hawaiians, I believe it's called a nui nui, and the Hawaiians believe it's one of the highest forms of blessings, when you see a night rainbow.
Wow.
It's almost like metallic looking. It's like a whole different aura. Like it's a strange, like seeing the colors at night is like you can't make sense of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there is definitely a different radiant energy off of that, whereas the sun emits the electromagnetic field, and then what we see is just a very small sliver of the electromagnetic of the visible light spectrum, but there's full spectrum. But we don't know what the moon emits. The moon it's been, I've seen demonstrations that they take a thermometer and they measure the moonlight, and the moonlight is actually cooler than in the shade.
Mm.
You know what
Wow.
I mean?
The moonlight is
So,
cooler than the shade.
so
Whoa.
like, if you go out at night and you where it's shaded, and they, because they say that the moon reflects from the sun, but there's alternative thoughts around that. I don't know, that's another rabbit hole, about the moon and the sun. But they've done demonstrations. I've seen that, like, if you take a wall and you measure at night, in the shade, it's a certain temperature, but in the moonlight, um, it's actually cooler.
Huh.
And which they were saying, like, is it really reflecting the sun, or does the moon has its own light?
Cold light.
Or is the energy actually moving away?
Oh,
Is
interesting.
it like a cathode and an anode?
Mm.
Is that the direction of flow of energy, right? So it's like activating everything energetically, and it seems the same, but it's actually going away, maybe.
Uh-huh.
Interesting. I never thought about that.
Yeah, that's a fun thought, fun idea.
Or a terrifying one.
Mhm. Let's keep our introductions going around. Who else hasn't checked in yet? Who wants to?
I can go now. So, I'm Daniela, and thank you for having me on this episode. Um, so yeah, a little bit about me, I guess. Since I was a kid, I was a little bit confused about the way that I was seeing our society live around me. Um, I felt that there was something off, and it propelled me into like this inquiry since I was very young.
Mm.
And only later in life, I got to really fulfill that sort of search and that inquiry. And that when I started traveling by myself and dived more into my own, journey of uh, contemplation, I found, yoga. I spent time in lots of different countries, and mostly in India towards the last chapters, but it's been kind of the last 5 years of my life, um, where lots was moving and a lot of evolution in myself as well to really find answers to what the human spirit really longs for, why we have everything, in Western society. We have our house, we have our like seemingly everything, but everyone is still, discontented.
Mm.
And so I was kind of trying to understand where this core need that that we are looking for. And I found a lot of I found the answer a lot in community. So in different ways, and just real connection as well. So just being able to express yourself really authentically in a cathartic way with someone that kind of enlivens the spirit, more than almost anything, I think. And that community like expanded, and feeling like there's a sense of belonging is also a fundamental need. So I kind of found that throughout my journey, and how it's the way that our structure and system is in place here doesn't really encourage that. So and then along my journey, I also found yoga, meditation. So I'm a Vipassana student as well, and I'm a yoga teacher, and I offer Reiki healing. Um, so there's lots of different interests that I kind of gained along the way that are in my field, and um, I'm really excited to dive into this conversation with all of you for the wider conversation of what like the next steps are for the evolution of humanity, and we are what can we do in our day-to-day lives and in our close communities. So yeah, and you also asked us to share about what kind of keeps us in our spiritual practice, or what keeps us, growing. And yeah, I like what you guys said about, physical exercise and stuff. I definitely want to bring more of that into my own practice. Having a lot of fire energy in me, I definitely need to like exercise it out. And so it's a good reminder. And for me, it's mostly meditation and going slow, just like slowing down everything. I really uh, learned this over time, that there's no need to really rush. And it's helped me a lot. It's still a journey that I'm constantly being tested with. And yeah, so I think for me, definitely meditation. And then, I mean, I'm a perpetual contemplator, so I need to be able to like have time for myself to write and just like have these things, um, this human experience be distilled within my own framework of myself. So I need time alone. I need breathing space for myself to go slower. And so yeah,
Yeah.
a little bit about me, and yeah, I'm excited to be here with all of you.
Welcome, Danielle. Thank you so much for being here. I love what you said at the very beginning of your intro about kind of starting off in life and noticing that something's off, and what have you found out? What's off with humanity? I feel like it comes from a place of innocence, right? And we all encounter that, and maybe we get too used to it and we forget it because it doesn't seem to ever be addressed or talked about. But thank you for voicing it tonight. And if you want to speak a few more words to that, like.
Sure. Yeah. It's a good question. And what it like the memory that I have as a kid is just this feeling of like love is the answer, but it felt too cheesy, or like too, like it was just too, it was not an acceptable thing to kind of share, and kind of say, hey guys, I think I know the answer to the world. It's love. Like, um,
Easy.
and and yeah, like I always have this vision of like standing in front with like a microphone and being like, love is the answer, and like try to get everyone to like, oh yeah, like, so but specific, like what was off. And I think, yeah, it's just maybe the way that I grew up in a suburb in Ottawa, that it was perfectly cut grass, and the asphalt, and there wasn't enough like that wildness that you know um that you might find in other places. But I grew up in a very, what I say, sanitized place, and just felt it just felt wrong. But I don't know how to go more into why. It's just and then maybe school, like the whole school system, that's a whole other topic that we could get into. But it's like the whole school system, just going in there, and I had this feeling like, oh, I have to like play the part of being a kid. So like I have to, like, the expectations of how adults think I should act, I will like act like that, like, so that, because I just felt like there was no dialogue, there was no exchange. It was like, there's the adults, I'm a kid, and I'm stuck there. And like, um, I don't know if you've had similar experiences of that, but
The roles are too fixed.
yeah,
Like you come in and there's no engagement in real time. There's a pattern that
right.
we do already that's not working.
Right. And I guess, yeah, when I would ask my parents as a kid, like, what are we doing here? Like, what is going on? Like, we're like, like, what's happening? Like, I don't get it. Like, and they just, it's like the thought never occurred to them. So, and I just felt like, okay, no one is asking this. Like, no one is like, everyone's just like kind of in this wheel that it's like, did you ever say like, what is that like? But yeah, that's kind of.
Thank you, Daniela. Maybe we'll circle back into this later, deeper into the night of the conversation. But thank you for voicing that. That's like I think a powerful aspect of what we're here to talk about.
Thank you.
Agreed. It's at the core of how I've lived my life. That recognition, that strangeness, and it's almost like everyone was in a trance, caused me to live very differently, and there's a price to pay for that. Good and bad of that. It makes you stronger. It forces you into places where other people don't go. So I'm from England, which is a developed country, and possibly one of the earliest to be put into this trance, and to be born into a family and a community that is in this spell. And it's heartbreaking, because the first thing you would grieve for is the fact that your people aren't fully alive. They're not fully conscious. They're not fully connecting with you or anything else. And they're kind of like mentally enslaved. And that there are, guards that patrol the boundaries of connection and stop them from really happening, which then stops love, right? It stops us all being in love with ourselves and each other and the world and the experience. And so these things are present, aren't they? There is something happening in our minds that then translates into our lives. And so I sense that, and that's why I am the person I am. And so for me, the mind is a place where a lot of work has to happen in order for the real world to be better, and in order for consciousness and soulfulness and love and all those things, free will, to actually hopefully manage to be fully expressed into the world through genius and creativity and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, so what you said, it's like it's at the core, isn't it? Some of us, for some reason, it didn't get us when we were young, or we escaped it at some point, maybe for others. So for me, it never got me. Rebellious, free thinker, troublemaker, right? And it can go two ways. I reckon I'll stop talking now, but I reckon a lot of the people that have ended up being, drug addicts, criminals, violent, aggressive, tortured souls, it was that. And there were little moments that were defining, and that loving, free will, conscious entity ended up finding them itself in places that, we call illegal or etc. So yeah. And so so I'm Lex, I'm from England, and this week I have been working through anger for a really long time, because the thing that got me through all of the situations, maybe bulletproof, was rage and extreme aggression when necessary. And I've been deconstructing that and trying to be more sensitive and lovely. And unfortunately, once I got rid of my anger, all it left me with was grief and sadness. And I still don't really know what to do about it. Like the anger was awesome. It get me up every morning, do anything I wanted. Nothing was undoable. Just, yeah, okay, cool. Rage, right? Let's fill the tank. Woof. You take that away, and it's just like, oh my God. So I'm working through grief and sadness at the moment, but trying to not to like sound like a sort of a really sad piece of classical music.
Anybody want to comment on the grief and the sadness?
Thank you, Lex, for sharing that. Yeah, it definitely touches me to hear you, because I feel like I can definitely relate to that, resonate with that. I felt that in my life. I've been to that place in my life. And I've seen the harm that it also has done. The anger and the grief, the anger and just the strong anger, really. Because I never really let myself to feel the grief. I just boxed it up. So yeah, no, I feel you, and I still go in and out of that phase time to time as trigger come up, especially in relationship to my dad. Like I definitely go through like layers of anger through that. But it also reminds me of what my shamans once told me. Like, because I remember after an ayahuasca ceremony, the next day I was doing a 3-day, and this was after day 1 or day 2. After every day, we would do an integration during the day. And I was telling him, because I was feeling like so much anger that was coming out in the ceremony night before. And I remember telling him, hey, I feel great. I feel great with this anger because it motivates me, gets me up. It'll just gives me that power to do what I need to do. Why don't I just utilize this anger? Why don't I just use this anger to do what I need to do? And he sat there like we were under a tree. Like he sat there and he just like listened to me. And he said, like, yeah, you can do that. But it'll burn you out. It'll burn you out. That's what it does. So yeah. So again, coming back around, I still hear Daniela with the mic on the stage saying, "Love is the answer." But I'm also happy that you're feeling this, because what I did experience is that once I move through the anger, the grief, the sadness, I was able to access more of my heart, more of the love that was always been there. Yeah, that's what's coming through for me. But I'm also really happy to see you sharing this, and I can finally feel like I can see your heart.
Yeah.
That's something I've been like contemplating for like since we start talking, but like especially last week, you're super present in my day-to-day life. And I was gonna bring it up in this conversation. I was like, why is it that whenever Lex talks, I'm having such a difficult time understanding him? And then Shane could be telling me the exact same thing that Lex just said, but I hear Shane clearly. But now I get it, why it is. It makes sense to me now. But yeah, anyways. But I'm grateful that you're sharing from a deeper place. And
Yeah, it was on Radio Angry, and you needed Radio Shane Love, right?
I also wanted Radio Lex Love, because I think there's a lot there.
Yeah, he's saying that like the anger can be a shield that's tougher to connect through. If there's too much of it, is like, if there's like suppressed anger, it can build like a wall between you and other people. Is that what you're saying, Mano?
I think so. Yeah, I think there was definitely like I still don't have like the perfect wording for it, but like when Lex just shared this just now, I'm like instantly like connected to him, my heart opened, like I'm just like in coherence with him, if that makes sense. It's from more like a felt experience rather than just intellectual knowledge. He's just sharing is what's true and real from his. Yeah, that just like, whoa, Lex, I want the girls to see this. I want the girls to witness this. Anyways,
Maybe they'll come back.
oh, they'll definitely come back. All right.
Oh man, beautiful.
Yeah, if I can just comment on something, so on this topic, when I now often when I see people with anger, and including myself, because I will often also be in anger, I remind myself that really like showing love to that person is like what will disarm that. And it's actually just so powerful. Like, it's happened to me once before where I was displaying anger, and someone, instead of like meeting me with that anger and kind of rejecting me and kind of like being like, wow, your energy is so awful, like I'm gonna just leave or something, they actually did an act of service for me. They like did something nice for me, and it just like made me cry instantly because I was like, I don't even deserve this right now. Like how I acted was kind of shitty, but like that it just totally disarmed me and make me actually feel like that I was just like this sadness was there, and I was, or whatever it was at the time, it was complex emotions were there, and I was just using anger to protect myself. And I think yeah, that experience really showed me, and I think of it often now when I see people displaying anger, or it's like this quote that I read somewhere. It's like the most awful person is, or like people who are showing anger, or they are the ones who are the most hurt, and they are the ones who you need to be even more kind with, even more loving with. And it's like we don't have that reaction usually when someone is displaying those kind of behaviors, but kind of reframing it really, it's, yeah, I just wanted to share that piece. Yeah.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah. Thank you, Daniela. It's big, you know. That yeah, it's hard to transcend the like resonance of the anger back, like getting angry at people for being angry versus like seeing past it to like what they're needing or whatever, or what they're going through internally.
Yeah.
Son, do you have anything on between anger and grief?
I was just running in my head, Chinese 5 element theory, and anger comes from the liver. And in Taoism, we always try to, rather than resisting what is, we try to complete the cycle. So, wood comes from the liver, and it's the liver anger, and then wood feeds fire. Fire reduces into ash, becomes earth. Earth is where metal grows, and then on metal is where water condenses, and then water feeds wood again. And so when we're stuck on something, we want to complete the cycle rather than resist it. So I was just kind of like my internal dialogue, like, okay, anger, it probably is coming from a place of from the heart, where our heart's not being seen, we're not being acknowledged, and so there's a little heart that needs to be element that's missing to complete that liver. That was just my internal dialogue, though.
I love that. So Taoism is it. A lot of the things that I come to of my own, I tend to see them in Taoism as well. But I think where I struggle is that I love what you said, and I believe it to be 100% true. What's difficult is that we're in a constant situation globally, and for some time to come, where how could you not be angry, right?
Totally.
Do you know what I mean? Like if you resolved it, isn't it just comes back?
I totally feel you. Yeah, how can you not be angry? I think why we're angry is because we care. We see what's going on, we care, and so there is a little bit of anger. And lately, I don't know about you guys, the energy's been so intense for me. Like, Mono is like, oh, I went exercise today, I feel great. I was like, I had a good night's sleep last night. I'm like, I feel good. Because like, man, the evenings, the nights just been intense, and before I go to sleep, like I have to totally prepare my space, armor myself up with the protection of spirit, and make my source connections. And like my sleep, it cannot just be random. I'm like, oh, busy day, eat, have dinner, whatever, go to sleep. Like no, I can't do that. Before I go to sleep, like I totally have to set my space, set my intention. And it's like launching a rocket. You got to make your trajectories and your calculations where this rocket is going, and so for me, before I go to sleep, like I totally have to set rituals and program my subconscious, and sit to see if there's any things that need to be cleared, any ho'oponopono needs to be done, and any business and stuff like that. Way I'm releasing the burdens of the day, and I'm reaffirming my connection to spirit. I'm sorry, I went off on a tangent. I forgot what we're talking about.
Oh, that's good. You know, Lex mentioned something really good about like that there's like you know, we can maybe you move the anger and then there's more anger back the next day or whatever. And but yeah, it seems, you know, maybe that even ties in with you, like ritual before sleep, is that there's like maybe like daily kung fu to do, and the spiritual warriorship is like, otherwise it builds up. Like if we don't deal with today's anger, we have tomorrow, we have more anger plus yesterday's or whatever. Like stacking.
Okay, I remember what I was getting at. The energies was so intense that like it was kind of getting to me, and I realized my nervous system is dysregulated. I needed to do some exercises to regulate my vagus nerve, you know, and I found some good exercises, and we can talk about that if you guys want. But what really hit me was like I heard something I had heard before, but I heard it this time and it hit me. I realized, and it was somebody that said something that like we're in a spiritual war, and I was like, that's right. If we're in a material war, then we're pretty screwed. But if we're in a spiritual war, then like, hey, I just gotta keep my connection to spirit, because I think it's God's got this. You know what I mean? And that God is, you know, the vastness and the intelligence and wisdom of God's creation. In our span of lives, you know, we have like 80 years, but in the span of God's eternal presence, 80 years could just be a quarter of an exhale, you know, and he's still exhaling, and that's not even one full breath of God's presence yet. You know what I mean? And God's full inhale and an outhale could be like 500 years, you know what I mean? And so we're just here in our little lives and perspectives, and we're like get caught up with our own individual perspective, but we're not realizing like there's a grander agenda and a bigger plan, you know.
Yeah.
Right.
Thanks for introducing this topics, and I'd like to hear some feedback from everybody else, both on like, do you feel we're in a spiritual war? And two, do you feel like God's got this? Or, you know, what's your perspective on that? Like, I would love to hear some more feedback from, is that your, you know, is that what you feel in your heart, or how do you relate to that?
For me, I think I've heard the term spiritual war several times, and I don't know if I completely resonate with that, but for me, how I kind of picture it is like there's always like the sort of fear and love tipping of scale that's going on within ourselves. And it's kind of like that is what you could call like a spiritual war. Like it's just within you, and it's within all of us. And so you have like the tactics of fear and like all of the fear that like could just take you, and or you can try to, you know, take care of yourself, your nervous system, and what you can around you, and just like visualize the, you know, how we would like to see Earth unfold. And it, you know, ultimately, I don't know if like yeah, I have a certain belief system probably that's like there's a lot of parallel universes, and so it's not necessarily like I don't know how to like digest that within myself, but I think, you know, we're all creating, we're all choosing. So if most of us in this, let's say this parallel universe, or you know, and I think you can move into different ones. So, but you know, would choose fear, then I mean, it might like go a certain way, but we all have that sovereign power ultimately, and that free will, I think. So like if you want to make choices to live in a certain way and create that around you, then that's like you trying to, you know, fight the spiritual war within yourself to get into like an outcome that feels good. And then yeah, so that's kind of my perspective on it. I think it's all within ourselves, all within ourselves.
Can you comment as well on like, do you feel like God's got this, or like how does those words resonate for you, or how would you interpret that on your end?
So I kind of do resonate with the God's got this, but it's not like God's got this. It's more like I feel in my body like that um the vision that I hold is possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So is that God? Is that I don't, it's I feel that the vision that was given to me by God, let's say, that word doesn't necessarily resonate with every audience. So, bear in mind, but the vision that I received, I feel that it is possible. So in that sense, I feel that like God's got this. Sure. Yeah.
No, I mean, it's totally fine to go into like that as well. Like, what word do you use? And do you have a word that, or an understanding that's, do you have like a source point, a universe, or like, how do you relate to, yeah, your
Um,
origins or spirit world, or maybe, if you wanted to speak to what terminology do you
sure.
use?
I think spirit resonates with me more, or yeah, the universe or energy.
Mm,
It's I don't have like a specific word that I use, but I'm come to a place now where God doesn't affect me, like using the word God doesn't affect me the way it used to. But because I used to experience it a certain way, that's why I'm like, well, I know for a lot of people it can even be triggering to hear that. It's almost like
mm,
like God, like that means you're like religious or something. So that's kind of why I pointed that out, but it's because I experienced that in my past where, I thought if someone is talking of God, then I just like don't I don't know if I can meet them where they're at because
mm.
it's too much connotations with Christianity and but that's my personal upbringing. Whereas now, like, I mean, I can use that word, but it's just I'm sensitive to how it's a word widely misinterpreted, right?
One final thing. Go ahead, son.
And misused, in the name of God, so much atrocities has been committed.
Yeah.
Just one last thing before we move on to other people, Daniela, is yeah, so do you feel like spirit is ultimately going to heal any imbalance happening on the earth right now? Do you have like a trust or belief in that, or like that you can kind
Yeah.
of, like you can rest in that assuredness, or do you feel like it's a very kind of an active day-to-day tipping of the scale, or how does that?
I think I I do believe spirit is taking care ultimately and of the balance. And however, I don't think it necessarily means that, we human the survival of the human species and its evolution is necessarily at the center of that, right? So
Hmm.
um yeah, the earth and the equilibrium of the universe, I trust it is safe. I don't know that, it's all about us,
Okay.
right?
I agree that we're in that bigger context, but I would like to kind of like narrow the microscope focus onto the human species. And like, it's not all about us, but when it comes to the human species, where do you find spirit's interest in the evolution or blossoming of the human being?
Yeah, I think spirit's constantly guiding us, constantly sending us messages to, you know, bring us towards a direction that is beautiful, like the beautiful world our hearts know is possible. How like Charles Eisenstein talks about it. I don't know if you're all, like familiar with him, but so I do think spirit is guiding us there, but I don't know. I haven't dived deep enough within myself with like my own faith or like do I with that specific question. Um
Yeah.
I'm taking more of like a equanimous approach of it, of like, if this human species gets out of this, well, like that's great, and I do believe it's possible. And if it's not, then it's like a natural rotation of life on Earth. Like and we like consciousness is infinite. I don't feel like it's yeah, there's another speaker, very popular speaker, that talks about he gave a podcast recently that was quite inspiring, in the sense that he was saying, if like every time there's a mass extinction on Earth, life flourishes even more after that. Like it comes even with more biodiversity after that. Zach Bush. So Zach Bush talked about this, and he was kind of suggesting that, in either scenario, he trusts that it's ultimately, and that, ultimately it's going to be a beautiful outcome, but we might not have to be so attached to our humanness in that story.
Trusting in consciousness's ability to produce new form if need be, kind of thing.
Yeah, we might come back as a even more evolved type of humanoid. I don't know.
Yeah.
Who knows?
The
Just
upgrade
let the
on our
imagination.
avatar.
Yeah. I just imagine like the movie Avatar, like that will be the next incarnation of Earth. Well, maybe it just needs to all. That's not necessarily my belief, but it's a thought.
We'd have some more comments on that, like spiritual warfare, and does spirit have this? Does God have this? Is it, are we safe to relax into that? We kind of get some more perspectives on that. Yeah.
Mano,
Mano.
you're muted.
Oh,
Sorry, thank you. Yeah, no, I said, yeah, I'll touch base on what everything everyone shared so far, and then I'll just add a little bit more of my own perception around it. But just that I really believe in, wherever we shift our attention, that's where the energy flows. And so, even for me, like I personally use the word war, and particularly like using the word spiritual and war, like in the same sentence, I use that with like so much caution, because when I sit back, when I look into the future, whether that's near or far, I see a world of peace, because that's where I personally would want to live. Yet I do believe that there are other entities at work, there are other things that are moving. Yet what I am choosing is to focus on the beauty and the love and all the good thing that there is, because I'm sure someone else is working on the destruction aspect. So I don't need to worry about that. You know what I mean? Like just creating what I can. And which brings me to my second point, which is God and understanding God. For me, God is energy, and so am I. I'm also energy. So it's like God is within me. God works through me, and and there are times God is me. Like there is no separation between me and God. So I believe that as a human beings, I choose to bring that forward, like with my awareness, bring that beauty forward. And as I do that, I am creating the world that I see. I am creating the world of my dream, where then more of us can come together and do all the beauty that we see. Yeah, I think that's a very important perspective for me to like hold very high. And it's very much talked about in the book, The Celestine Prophecy. I'm sure like many of you probably read it. Yeah, James Redfield. And yeah, and then just keep coming back to that reminder of how important it is. Yeah, I think that's my piece around that.
so it's like we have our free will, to however much we do our own personal spiritual development and awareness, to kind of maybe align ourselves with our source energy that's running through us, to be inspired to maybe participate in the nurturing or the caring for the life that we are, and that surrounds us, and how much we wish to use our own energy and creativity to play within that life stream and grow it, expound upon it in like beauty or peace or abundance or however, or sharing or community, and knowing that that's an impulse of the God energy moving through us or in us or as us.
That's it. Yeah.
Manifestations,
That's it. And like, as we come together, like even through this video call, I can feel the energy expanding as I have these conversation with you. And when I was living with you on Bowen Island, just living at the farm, like, right people come together, it feels like we were living in a, different paradigm entirely. And so I'm saying, like, we have that potential to keep cultivating more. And there's that famous beautiful saying, like, if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go with people, like, go together. And so I think it's fundamentally time for humanity to awaken, and I think we all play a key role, and that's part of the reason why we're having this conversation in the first place. This understanding is like a little pieces of the puzzle, bringing them all together so we can see the bigger picture.
So one of the places where I struggle is that many people throughout the ages have looked at being, right, and wondered. And we're in a time where wonder is gone, wonderment is gone. Everyone knows everything, right? But everyone knows a different thing, right? And it's really awkward to get through that. And so one of the things that I have done quite successfully is to find ways to remove everything that you possibly can that's unnecessary, that leaves the thing intact, the concept or the ideology or the belief, and to keep asking questions. Well, what does that mean? What does that mean? So spirituality, for instance, I would ask people, well, what is spirituality? And then you get this endless series of answers, which could be anything. It could be aliens coming from the edge of another universe, communicating with us through quantum something or other, like elves, pixies, inner earth people, Jesus, Muhammad. Like it's infinite. It's an infinite mess, right? And so what is amongst that? What is in there that we can get to past all of the nonsense and past all of the drama and the theater? And so that's what I try and do. But it's really difficult because what I personally find is a more sort of Taoist engine amongst it of godness that sometimes is not good to hear, doesn't make you feel good. Sometimes it's bad news. It's not always good news, right? But hearing the bad news and having a reframed perspective gives you the fullness of integration into the truth of reality. So this is the problem, is that people are happy and times are hard. And do I interrupt people's happiness with some useful adjustment, or do I shut the fuck up? It's a quandary. It's a quandary.
Right. Like if people are kind of blissfully or naively kind of asleep or whatever, but you feel like the movement is towards a dead end or destruction, is it, do you disturb the blissful naivety sleep to say like, hey, look at this, there's work to be done, or we got to make a sharp turn 90 degrees, like now, like, wow.
Because it's cruel and it might not be a successful outcome. So how do you choose? Do you interrupt people's bliss on a potential suicide mission, which is the right thing to do, to try and fix things and is a kindness to them? Or do you do the other kindness where you don't vandalize this beautiful set they've created to have their little story play out in?
Does anybody have any answers for Lex there? Any feedback on that?
I don't have an answer. But I think what was coming to me is that people who choose to live in that set, or unconsciously, are in that. I don't know if any of us shaking them awake would even really work. I think there's some of us who have that seed, or it's worth watering, and then there's other people. I think those efforts, it's challenging, because I find myself in a similar conundrum where I'm surrounded by people who I feel like I can't relate to a lot of the things that I have in my thoughts most of the time. And it's like, do I try to bring it up, like, to get them engaged in this? But unfortunately, it seems that the numbing is so deep that maybe I need a more powerful form to, shake them. And if you found one, please share, because I'm more on the side of definitely waking people up. But I just haven't even found that it's possible with certain people that are so deep in it. And I think that if someone has a seed, you'll be able to tell right away, because as soon as you bring it up, something is like alive, and they are like interested to have a conversation about it. And if not, it's like they'll just start talking about something else, and like, okay, like so that wasn't an answer, more just like I noticed that.
So if we choose not to, like, disturb, go ahead, Lex.
So I'm going to be a bit more risky now. I
Yeah.
know about the asleep people. I'm talking about the people who think they're awake.
Ah,
A good one.
yeah. Give an example of where like the blind spots that some people are missing. Where's
Okay, so there's loads, and I'm not saying this to be horrible, but love and fear are not opposites. Love and hate are opposites. Okay, fear is not the opposite of love. I'll give you an example. You're on a plane with your family, you love them, you're living your best life, everything's beautiful, you've met the person of your dreams, your children are lovely, you're going somewhere beautiful, you look at them and you are filled with love, and then you notice through the window that the engine's on fire, and now you're afraid. You're afraid for all that you love. You don't stop loving it whilst you're afraid. Both are present, right? Fear is not the opposite of love. If we are in some strange place where there is some kind of misalignment happening through consciousness, through spirit, evil, if you like, I call it evil. It's that subtle and that manipulative that it is rotting through all of what people think is where we're supposed to be. And there are minor adjustments which make huge differences and bring us into alignment with the thing we say we're in alignment with for real. And there are like hundreds of these little things, like judgment. We just do judgment as well, right? Judgment is not a bad thing. Judgment is what we do when we recognize patterns, repeating patterns, and it's how we understand reality. Reality is a difference machine. The difference of things is how we have any experience at all. Difference has to be there. And there is interconnectedness and separateness at the same time. It's a very subtle thing. And all we've got at the moment is binary only, rather than integrations of complicated algorithmic things, right? Bear with me. Judgment is when we see repeating patterns and use them to understand the world, to make decisions, to know that water is water because it was water yesterday and the day before, right? The sun comes up and goes down, the moon, the seasons, you know, we see these repeating patterns, and that is how we build this thing that we experience of reality. And so if you see lions repeatedly killing and eating things, and you decide that that is what they do, just because you see a YouTube video where some crazy magician guys raised a family of lions and the lions give them kisses and licks and hugs, you should not now completely overturn your decision that lions are dangerous because you have one piece of contrary evidence, right? So judgment is a natural, logical, has to be there part of being a thing that experiences without being insane, right? And yet we've been told that everyone's repeating like parents, judgment, don't be judgment, don't be judgment, don't be judgment, like parrots, like mindless little fucking birds, right? And it's frightening. It's frightening how much of this is happening in everybody. It's in all the religions. It's in the new age. It's everywhere. And it's terrifying. It's terrifying because these people are repeating like machines that they're no longer repeating machines. There's work to be done for all spiritual people who believe that they are now spiritual, right? I'm just saying, sorry, I've gone to the weird place, but you feel me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think just to keep some continuity or, of our conversation thread here, like Daniela mentioned that we've kind of gotten into there's kind of like camps of people where like some people are like super sensitive and feel the like disruption of like things aren't right and have a strong heart desire to like want to create in new directions. And then other people don't really know what you're talking about with that. But then even in those camps of other people, maybe I guess what I'm trying to say, there's many camps. I guess it's more than two, There's not just like an awaken and a sleep. There's like, and amongst the awakened people, there's maybe a plethora of ideas or versions of their belief systems of where they stand. And then I guess the logical question is, where would we want to be putting our efforts, or, where's the next direction to aim our energies? If it's not maybe at shaking or disrupting people who are kind of content or happy with how things are, you maybe let them be. You have others who are sensitive and awake and aware to things, and you want to connect with them. But as you connect with them, maybe there's a large percentage of them that you have trouble finding common ground on.
I'd love to ask the people here for honest feedback. So basically, that's my difficulty, is that these adjustments, this spiritual chiropractic, or what's the one with the needles, son? You know this one where you put the acupuncture. Any of these modalities that align energy as raw energy, the mind also needs this, and the language and the stuff that's happening in spiritual minds at the moment. There are these things that shouldn't be there. They're almost like toxicities. They're almost like poisons. And so I was honest with you, and I can easily back off and get all friendly and lovely and not be like this. But do you see what I'm saying? Because it's fixable.
Yeah.
But I just wonder if your instant reaction is turn that man off now.
No, I'm really glad that you shared that piece with us. And it's definitely something that I've also struggled with in the spiritual community. And what I found someone talking about, she called it full spectrum duality, like humanity, like the full spectrum. And like it's not like love and light only. It's not like, yeah, we just need to talk about love and it will just, like, no. And so yeah, I can resonate with what you're sharing. And even like there's been spiritual communities that I've been around where I've definitely felt a bit like, oh, like a new sort of conditioning where it's like I can't like express myself like with like the certain things. So I'm glad that you kind of just let the gates open, and I think that's very brave. And I'm in what you were sharing of yeah, like I think what like what I understood is like maybe this is just like a random example, but there's certain maybe spiritual communities and stuff that kind of create their own little nirvana like experience together. But I'm like, then they're like, love and light and da 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 all together in that like little bubble of reality. But really, the rest of the whole world is still out there, and everyone, we shouldn't be blind to that. Or like, I don't know if that's kind of in a line with what you're trying to say, but
Well, so my thing is healers healing healers, right? And teachers teaching teachers almost, which means teach each other. And the first thing
yeah,
we have to
just
do
like
is
staying in.
unlearn bad teaching. And almost all we have is bad teaching. And so you have to be ruthless. You have to just get rid of everything. And it's so, such a, you have to be very courageous, right? But the first problem is that you have to be 100% authentic, and people have to start admitting that they don't know. We have to start with I don't know and work from there and see if we can find our way into some knowing together. And we don't have that. We have people with contradictory knowing disagreeing with each other. So that's my thing.
I like that, Lex. Like, I think you even started this kind of conversation with speaking about like wanting to break it down to its simplest form. And I think that's really beautiful, and kind of get rid of some of maybe like we got too many characters or storylines out there that can just get convoluted after a while. And if we can simple it down, take as much out of it as possible to keep it in its truth. And I feel like truth is always simple. And the clearer we can get at that. And I agree too, that starting in the not knowing is maybe the perfect place. I have a question to propose to the group. I'm going to use your analogy, Lex, of like in the airplane and the engine's on fire. And I'm going to say like, maybe we're in that state on the planet right now, where you can look out the window and the engine's on fire. And if our fundamental level, if we're consciousness, even before we're human beings, maybe we're consciousness, then what is on fire? What is the engine on fire? What's happening right now on Earth with humanity? If we're at the consciousness level and there seems to be some type of fire brewing, some type of like parasitic or destructive or warmongering or controlling or death element like biting into life right now, like what's happening there? Like, what is it? Is this just a lesson, a game that we're playing with ourselves, or is there a real danger or threat, or what is going on?
I'm really curious to hear what everyone has to say.
What's your guts tell you?
But I don't have much, like I have to think about it more, but I thought about this poem that I co-wrote a poem once with a friend, and so we would write one line and then I would write next line, and then anyway, and towards the end I think he ended up writing something like uh for there to be like a game that the toy soldiers need to have like another like opposition, like I won't have the words right, but basically like for us to have fun and for there to be a game, there needs to be like the toy soldiers, he said, like need to be lined up kind of like against each other. And maybe that analogy doesn't really need to be like so taken so you know literally. It's more just that yeah, maybe it is a like sort of we're here, and maybe that's part of the beauty. It's like obviously like death is one of our things that we fear, and the death of all of humanity and of ourselves, and it's like, but that's part of life, and it's what makes life special and gives it value. But anyway, I just thought of that little, well, like that came up, but otherwise I'm super curious to hear what you guys have to say about
Yeah, I'll tailgate on Daniela's thought there. She's on a good track. Yeah, because we definitely play, I feel like, as humans, we play the duality game. So it's definitely important to have the opposition to realize like what we have. Without that, I feel that even me, like, I forget to give thanks for all the good things that I have in my life in this moment. So coming back to the analogy that Shane was giving, so there's a plane, the engine's on fire. Imagine that plane is taking us to the golden age and the engine's on fire. It's like what's happening, all the intensity in the world. That's like the engine's on the fire. That's how I see it. But the golden age is not where we thought it is. Like, just say the plane is like it took off from like Vancouver and it's going all the way to Toronto. But we thought the golden age is actually in Ottawa, but in truth, or in Toronto, but in truth, the golden age is actually in Saskatchewan. So the only way to do that is to crash land, like right in the middle, because its engine's on fire. And when we land, we realize, oh shit, this is the golden age. We were missing it. Kind of, relates to the moment. Just realized, like, we are living. So just like the wake up call, like a lot of people, look at the lockdown and they think it was the most horrible thing. But I see it in some ways as like, it made people realize how important it is to have community, how important it is to see their friends, how important it is to go outside. So that polarity is, I think, such a powerful creator of realizing what we have to be grateful. And it's like one of the most powerful energy that can really help transform the state of our being to a higher state of vibration, if that makes sense. That's how I perceive that. Maybe I'm acting all love and light, but I don't know. Lex would tell me.
Yeah.
I'm curious to hear what's moving through Sun's brain.
Me too. I'm still waking up. I got up at 6 a.m. to do this. I'm kind of like trying to stay up and hang out with you guys. What was the question? I kind of forgot.
Question. Well, here, I'm going to add to it. I'm going to evolve it even some more. I would say that, like, as consciousness, consciousness itself is shaped by what we live and experience in the human experience here. Like, our emotions, our experiences, our interactions with life shapes what consciousness is. And so even if and I would say that, like, the human being itself is a creation of consciousness, and it's a beautiful thing in that it's a marriage of so many layers of creation all happening simultaneously together. It's a unity, and that affects all of life in every direction. So I would say it's not inconsequential what happens with humans. And that the effect is not one way or the other. It's not like we're just affected by spirit world, or that we only affect spirit world. It's all one continuous flow, I would say. And I guess the question at the core was like, where's the crises? As we zero in on like what we see happening on the planet, there's lots of tension. There's lots of kind of as we talked, maybe even before the camera was rolling, about like polluting of the waters. There's poisoning of the land. There's war, there's aggression, there's so many things that, like, Daniela mentioned at the beginning, of like innocence born into this world says, like, hey, something's off. Like, and not only is it off, but a lot of people seem to not notice it, or have gotten numbed to it being off, that they think that that's just the way it is. And so now the question is there something to be done about it? You know, is that a challenge before us? Is there a multiplicity of outcomes based on how we choose to engage with it? And where does your heart move you on this topic? Like where do you stand as far as like, can you just be complacent and watch, or or does that in itself affect your spirit to be complacent and watch? Like, how does that feed back into the loop of life?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I could easily just get in the rabbit hole and just just stay there, and just get deep into the rabbit hole, and what I get for myself is that it's such a balance of learning the truth and then also taking action and creation. I think there's a trinity form of of beingness that keeps us in balance. For me, I can only speak for myself, is that I'm a truth seeker. I really want to understand and know the truth about what happened, why are we here, how do we get here, and so I get down that rabbit hole a lot. And so that's one aspect, because just like in medicine, you cannot treat an illness if you don't have a proper diagnosis. Like, humanity, we're sick. We're in a very sickened space, and I believe you cannot treat our condition without having a proper diagnosis of how we got here. And then the other part is, you can't just examine the illness to death, because what you focus on is what becomes you, and you'll get sick just because there is a lot of darkness and evil here. And so the other aspect is creation. What do you do with that? With knowing the sickness, where we need to go. And then, focusing a lot of my energies on creation, on creating goodness and connection, and then the third aspect is really enjoying the process, that joy, of this journey. We don't understand why we are in this creation, how this was created, its intention. And I think it's important. The message that I get was that, like, all of this creation was created for us to enjoy and partake. And if we don't enjoy it, then, we we miss out, on smelling the roses and the beauty of this magnificence. And so for me, these three things, and I struggle, it's not easy for me, but this is the lesson that I get, is enjoy the beauty, focus on creation, because I think my tendency is to, like, examine that rabbit hole.
I like it. Truth seeking, creating, and enjoying. Is that it?
Yeah. I think that's really important, to stay balanced, and really, what works for me will not be what works for you, because, like I mentioned earlier, during this summer solstice, oh my God, the energy was so intense, and my sleep was like, I'd go to sleep, and there was just so much energy. I'm just getting bombarded and hit with these waves, and I'm like, what is going on, and then I realized, like, oh, it's my vagus nerve. I need to regulate my nervous system. So I had to do exercises, get acupuncture, and regulate my own nervous system, because that is part of the game, is to hijack our nervous system so that we're not in control of what we're creating, what we're manifesting, what we're attracting, And so learning to regulate your nervous system and have healthy skill sets and exercises to constantly tonify our nervous system.
Tend to the trauma that's built up in our
Yeah, because we're being bombarded with so much information. A lot of that is misinformation, and that's part of the game. You know what I mean? And then we got to deal with the collective in our vicinity. We have that collective mind control programming, amnesia, and then we have our ancestral programming, that we need to deal with as well. That is our responsibility. It's why we incarnated into family lines that we are, you know, and so you know, constantly doing your energetic clearings and connection, you know, is so important. For me, it's like I got to get out in nature 2, 3 times a week, sometimes every day. You know, I got to get up into the mountains. I got to get into the rivers. You know, like plug in. For me, that's what really calms me down and feel makes connects me. You know, so I think for everybody it's different.
One of the ways that I thought about things, think about things, is that I've been homeless 5 times, and I've lived in nature. I've made my little, place to sleep with trees and twigs and stuff. I've lived in bands and all those versions. And nature was, in where I am in England, there's no food really. And, the weather's not great, and, it's not that beautiful, to be quite honest with you. And so I found nature to be quite barren. And I think that there is something there, but for me, it stopped being enough. It was human connection that became the nature that I was looking for. And I think a lot of people go into nature to escape bad human connection. But I think that obviously the optimum would be to have great human connection in nature. That would be the top one, right? And so, that festival culture sometimes gets close, doesn't it? But that's because the real world has been removed, so that's a difficult, that would be the optimum for me, is to be able to connect with people. And that in itself would be my connection to nature, to another natural human, you know?
I like it. Daniela, I think at the beginning you spoke about like the town you grew up in was very sanitized, and that there wasn't like a connection with the wild. And there was like
Yeah.
hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, so I can resonate with what you're saying, Lex, in the sense of like nature didn't really impress you or something, like perhaps. But yeah, there's a few points I want to share about what you guys shared also, but I'll just um on this topic too, like because I had the privilege to travel a lot, I did get absolutely overwhelmed by the beauty of this planet, in a way that is just transcendental, and like the amount of love you can feel for this earth is just immense. And but now my challenge is being back here in my hometown where everything's still sanitized and everything, is really challenging myself to appreciate the incredible beauty of Mother Earth, even in the tiniest details, even in the smallest things. When I see a bird, when I see, just the way that the leaves sound when they're, so I challenge myself to really find that portal of beauty, even when it's not so epic, because it's so easy when it's epic. It's so easy to feel that love when you see these mountains and everything so obvious, and so I'm taking it as almost like I'm trying to make it exciting for me, as making it a challenge that okay, now can I find that in just like not much, like there's not much here, but like I can I can still try to connect with that. And what you were saying also about like, the connection to others, and not being kind of like this deep deep need of humanity. I think that is absolutely like fundamental to the illness of that we're experiencing. It's like this lack of connection, and it's not just connection to others, other humans, it's connection to ourselves, to our own true nature, to like having that relationship with yourself, and then where you can meet others and share connection, and then also with the earth, and those things I think are fundamental to what needs to be addressed right now, and kind of bringing in more opportunities for that connection. whether it be with yourself, with others, or with Mother Nature. And yeah, I liked a lot what you said, Son, about finding the proper diagnosis and the root. It's about like addressing the root cause. And so it's, yeah, I feel like I could name a bunch of symptoms. I could name like, oh, there's pesticides in the food, and there's like I could name so many things that make me feel like, oh, this is why humanity is messed up. But so like, okay, there's all of that, but like, what is the root cause? So I think that's an interesting thing to contemplate, and also just also, yeah, focusing at least as much energy into creating the world that we wish to live in, as we're putting towards like all of the stuff that we don't enjoy. And so, yeah, I don't know. Some people talk, I've heard people talk about it like, oh, like you can be on defense or offense. Like if you're on defense, then, you're, I guess, like maybe preserving the view. And if you're on offense, you're the one who's like, um, trying to go into politics or like go into like action where it could be really hard. And so I don't know, like, but I definitely agree that putting most of our energy towards creating the new version that we wish to live within is more fruitful than constantly agonizing and over the things like that. I can complain about pesticides in my food that I've eaten for most of my life, or I can now just grow my own food and educate people about that and try to do that, and try to like put my energy towards that focus rather than like ban pesticides and like, I don't know, both are needed, but that's what I got from a few pieces of what you all shared. And
I like that. And you got to knowing to grow your own food because you did pay attention to the problem, and then you came up with a solution. See what I mean? So it's from the Taoist, it would be like, balanced amount of don't not look, don't only look, I guess. And that's what we're doing with it's just there's so many things to do that with that's exhausting. You have to do it with, you have to equalize everything. Like everything is in some version of extremity, and you have to, like, it takes conscious awareness and refined cognition to sense and get it to a middle place, and then be in contradiction with everyone virtually.
What's our next step as far as like, once the awareness is at that point, what's what would be the most interesting thing to do as far as unifying those who are on the same page about these things?
My answer would be for those people to spend time with each other, and in the process they would consolidate their energetic conscious expression, and they would knowing that there was this location of awareness and this currently best structure of thinking, right? I know that's a lot of words, but basically a sane, rational, balanced human whose energy is fully online, spending time with others the same, would do something very important amongst all possibilities, and would resonate that. And each one of the people would be, I think that all the healers on this planet have broken themselves trying to heal people that are not healable. And I think we missed the opportunity for healers to find each other and work with each other and be the thing that was the example.
Yeah, I definitely resonate with what Lex is saying. I think it's important. It's important to gather in communities these time. When I say communities, like it means like hanging out and going for a walk with like people that are in the same frequency. And I believe that's how we slowly start building momentum toward wanting to create all the beautiful things that we want to create. You know, like if I were to build a farm by myself, it might take me 10 years, but like with 10 of us, it'll take me a year. You know, it's just because time is important, because, you know, like I wouldn't want to wait for the golden age till I'm 50 or something. You know, it'd be nice if it happens in the next 3-4 years. So yeah, and keep bringing more of the practices and techniques and things that I've learned throughout time into my current reality, into my current space, so that more people can have access to it. Yeah, because it's important. It's important to like tackle every aspect of the divinity. You know, it's not just one thing. It's not just about doing the physical work, but it's also about doing the mental work. It's about doing the emotional work. It's about doing the spiritual work. It's addressing like each of those cornerstones, so that we can find the wholeness. We can feel the truth of our own being, thus becoming more present, more online. Yeah, that's my sense of truth around that.
I feel like we're
I've
getting.
got,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
sorry, I've got a question. So how do we feel, each of us, about taking spirituality into the more mundane things, or the more, you know, things like politics, you know, like medicine's an obvious one, right? If we took spirituality into medicine, common sense, you know, being sane, having the wisdom that comes from the kind of things we've looked at and sat with, if you took that into medicine, it would become what it should be. It would be a place where people are genuinely healed rather than poisoned and murdered. But everyone's comfortable with that. But what about politics? Do we think that's possible?
I believe that we should have a law that's saying every politician must do at least 3 10 days vipassana, and or do like 2 weeks of ayahuasca ceremony in the jungle. Like I think that has to be a mandated system, so that we have people who knows what's up, who knows themselves, who understands the truth of like the thing that we're dealing with, and have the capacity and a deeper knowledge of what it means to be human, and to hold all these other humans' life at their hand, in a way, like, you know, livelihoods at their disposal, like, so they understand what they're working with. I think it's vital. Not like, you know, drug cartels, like, or like, you know, like old money that's just coming into power. Because I don't think it's serving the fullest potential, or like it's serving the larger humanity. And I was reading this, something like there are like 80 people in US that possesses the same amount of wealth as like almost 50 million Americans, or like 80 million Americans. And like that number doesn't make sense. Like that number does not make sense, but it's in a sociology book, you know. But anyways, just a side note there.
I think there's a point in our time when spirituality got divorced out of culture, and I don't think life is meant to be. There's no part of life that's not spiritual, and it's a more trying to divorce the two, where we find ourselves today, where these things are separate concepts, and we're trying to reintroduce spirituality back into the mundane, the daily life, back into the way we build our structures and live our world. And I think even in my own personal psyche, I've had spirituality as this thing that I do or I pursue, because it feels vacant from where I started from. And that I think maybe our core nature is not divorced from spirituality. They're enmeshed, and that everything would be born of a life that's enmeshed with spiritual awareness. And then it's not something you do in your day or week or month. It's a place that you grow life from, and all the structures reflect that. I think we've gotten to the end of our time for our discussion today. It's been a full one. It's been fun navigating the tempo of new voices, and a group of 5 is always a bigger energy to coalesce. But I'd like to go ahead and bring our conversation to a close and bring us into the final part, where we'll channel one more message to kind of close the group. But before we move into the channeling, is there anything else anyone would like to say to kind of wrap up or finish our conversation? Yeah, everybody's good. Okay. All right, so for the channeling of the higher self, this is something I feel we all have access to, our inner spirituality, our inner knowings, our intuition, our guidance, our connection directly back to source. As I say, if God, your origin place, the direct connection that I believe we all hold inside, and we access it however makes sense to us, the voice that we know. And I want to take a few seconds to take a deep breath and center ourselves inside that space, and feel the fullness of this last hour and a half in our conversation. Everything that got spoken, and if there's something that really moves you, and if your higher self wants to speak a sentence or two to what you feel was the most important, or powerful truth that would like to be spoken right now, and one more gift of the wisdom of your divinity presence right now. Like, when you're ready, go ahead and share, speak into the circle.
Yeah, I got something that's coming alive for me. I really appreciate what some of the wisdoms that was shared, the connection with each other and finding the beauty in the little things. And that third part I was sharing about, a little clarification that came through for me was also, rather than joy, is like the important aspect is to live in that perfection, because it's a state of mind. And the tree of knowledge that gave us the understanding that we're lacking, and it's messed up and all this stuff, and that could be a bottomless pit. But there is also a constant perpetual perfection at every moment. And zoom in on that, and dive into that and stay in that state of perfection, regardless if the plane's burning. I got my loved ones right now with me, you know what I mean? But just enjoying that moment, it's a big message for myself, to like. And the reminds me of the like, who's this, Joe Dispenza, consciousness informs reality, and the universe rearranges itself to our inner state. And so I've been it's been on my to-do list to sit down and really tune in into that perfected state where the magic and the beauty is all around me, and I'm in that pulse of living creation, and connected with all of that, and so that's probably will be my to-do list today when I get to sit and meditate.
Yeah. Thank you, son.
can share next. And yeah, I'm very appreciative for the conversation we got to have today, and the aliveness and the love and the energy of the space. And the essence of the conversations that's present within me, it's for me to really understand that every experience, it's a spiritual experience. Every experience, it's a divine, the orchestrated experience. And to really listen with my heart, listen with my body, and really listen with my whole being. And to feel the truth that resonates from within. And to know that God is with me. God is within me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mano.
Share next. What comes through for me is kind of like these pillars that I see holding up like this reality that like to birth forward. And it's, one of the pillars is community. So that being with, creating interbeing, interconnection, belonging. And another pillar would be the regeneration of, the land, protection of our resources, permaculture principles, really valuing those, our land and our water, and then food sovereignty, organic, local food, being more of what keeps us healthy. Community gardens and that kind of thing. And then another pillar I noticed that kind of ties into one of the last topics from our conversation is Indigenous knowledge and Indigenous reconciliation. There was some topic about, having this sacred view, bringing in like this sacred view of our beingness here and everything around us. And I think, more like Indigenous cultures have that as part of their, their lives. And there's a lot that we can learn. And, being in Canada and there's a lot of work right now that needs to be done for reconciliation. Like the original people that were here. And then the last pillar that I see is re-education. I find, just being able to bring that awareness of these topics, because it's often underneath the covers for people. So that's kind of just like my vision. And yeah, I just want to say I also really appreciated being able to share this space and conversation with all of you. And I got to just witness, your hearts and your what's moving through, and I'm grateful. So
Thank you, Daniela. Yeah.
I've got nothing revelatory, but I really enjoy these sessions because of the thing that's most difficult, which is to spend time with other souls. And I'm learning to actually connect you know, like, and sense you guys. And one of the thing about Shane and all of you guys and all of his friends apparently is you seem to be much more elementally connected than I would say I am. Do you know what I mean? Like I sense in all of the people that arrive into these sessions, there's this, you guys are something happening in you that is a conversation with the land and with nature and with that. And I feel that. And it's nice to be around. You know what I mean? So I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you, Lex. Yeah. Thank you for always sharing closer and closer to your own heart with all of us. My channel tonight is saying to touch and to be touched. And then to be honest with ourselves and with others about how that feels. So like as we, as you know, maybe we go outside into the world and it like grates on us and it's rough, it's okay to speak that. To both allow it to touch us and to be touched by it, and then also to be honest about how that feels. And that in that we bring divine presence into our reality that's maybe gone numb. And we bring that divine presence into the space so that we can begin to feel it and recreate it, reshape it in a way that maybe doesn't feel so rough as we interact with it. And as we continue to be our innocent selves and speak that truth, it's easier to for other people to connect with, to see and hear and feel and connect with. And like, hey, like when Daniela says what she said at the beginning, like, hey, my little child self felt the same way. And it feels good to hear someone say that. And it helps me to be brave and say like, yes, me too. I feel that. I connect with that. And yeah. That's what I'm feeling with tonight's conversation. And it was a real pleasure to drop into this circle with all of you. It's fun to have new energy, new voices, and feel a bigger group together. Yeah, so before we close out tonight, if anyone has any final comments they'd like to say before we end the recording.
I just want to say I appreciate all the sharing from the heart, and it was really juicy and gave me a lot of things to ponder about, and I feel enriched by our sharing today. And thanks for blessing me up.
Thank you, son. It's been awesome dropping in with you today.
Yeah, right on, Shane. Haven't dropped in with you in a while.
I just want to second what Sun shared. I feel enriched by, this conversation and give me more prompts to contemplate on, and it's just really nice to be able to share this kind of conversation with others who are as interested in it. So thank you for that. It really does make me feel less alone, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate, both of you sharing and the entire night. Usually I feel really full, like where you two just shared the same reason why I keep coming back every week, because I feel so full. Yeah, it's beautiful to like have both of your energies to join us. And thank you for bringing your beautiful presence and the groundedness in the messages and the vulnerability. Yeah, definitely feel touched by that. And thank you, Shane, for keep hosting it. Yeah, it's 13. Like we're going, and I feel like every time it's getting better and better and better, and it's like it feels so good, like more expanded. And I love seeing the evolution of Lux. It's like it just brings me so much joy.
Yeah, it's a real pleasure to connect my friends together, like to see my friends meet each other, and like I feel like the little community family keeps growing out through this little online group. It's fun. Yeah, it gives me hope. I enjoy these conversations too, and sometimes I feel like, oh, maybe we didn't get to what we needed to get to or say what we needed to say, but I feel like each time we do this, we get closer, and it gives an opportunity for this to come out, and what hasn't surfaced yet, maybe it's ready and ripe for the next conversation to come forth. And hopefully it stimulates everybody that takes some time to listen to it, and we're open for more people to participate and for more comments or suggestions on what they feel is the most important thing to talk about, because that's also what this space is for. Like, what is the most important thing we could address inside of this space? And maybe just our communion together is up there at the top of the list. Any final comments, Lex, before we close out?
I just it's just nice to be around this energy, and I'm inexperienced. I really don't hang around with people who are grounded and sensitive and nice and decent and conscious, and I just don't do it. So I'm getting used to it.
Beautiful. We'll keep bringing more people into the circle. And, thank you all for being here tonight. Thank you in this morning and wherever you're at, and for taking the time out of your day and your work and your life to show up for this. I really appreciate it. May you all be blessed, and may we all feel good getting out of here. Sending my love and my thank yous. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Aloha, everyone. Have a beautiful day.
Bye.